All right, we are live for the Friday edition of the Mike and Mario Show, and today is somewhat of a special day because it's the first of the month, the last month of 2023, and there's a lot of concerns about how 2024 is going to start off from a variety of sectors. So we're going to touch on that and a lot of other things, but before we get into all that juicy stuff, Mario, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing well. And the other reason it's an important day is because it's Rudy's first birthday.
Shigay, there we go.
Now, yeah, no, it's quite cold here,
Yeah,
but we've had a bit of snow, which is unusual.
yeah.
But yeah, a lot going on in the world, economically, financially, politically, geopolitically. I saw that they're fighting again in the Middle East. Anyway,
Never a dull moment, man. But of course, we're gonna try to get to as many subjects as we can, and of course, get your guys' feedback. So for those as you come in, definitely hit the thumbs up button, show your support for the channels. And if you got thoughts, ideas, suggestions, hold on to the very end. We'll definitely love to get to those. And I enjoy the face-to-face opportunity where you guys get a chance to plug in with us and talk to us directly. So we'll give the link to that as we get towards the Q&A portion. So I guess just a quick glimpse through this week of activity. What seemed to be the most encouraging for the alternative media community, aka stackers, was the gold price action because it's above 2000 and it appears to have settled above 2000 minus any slam downs, last day market closing type of things. And so I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. I got a lot of rants that I kind of put together myself, but as of now, it looks as if we're off to the races in a sense, or what are you feeling, Mario?
well, yesterday was the last day of the month, and
Hmm.
we closed at 2040, I think, and
Yeah.
that's an all-time monthly closing high. So
Hmm.
that's very significant. The previous high was 1989, I think, back in April this year.
Yeah.
So today, I mean, gold is continuing to do well. We're almost at 2060. That's the high, 2061. Uh,
Hmm.
2070 really is the key level. That was the high in 2020. So we might not get there today, but next week it will probably definitely test that. And we need to, I think, to really break, for people to really wake up, not just people in the stackers, but people that don't look at gold. Maybe going above 2100 will, get
Hmm.
more people in. But I ultimately think that the only way gold will reflect its real value in the long term is when people start trading the paper and buy the real thing. You still have a lot of traders, investors, speculators, funds. They see gold more as a speculation to make
Yeah.
fiat dollars. I think they will realize eventually that they need to be actually out of fiat dollars into physical. I don't know when that's going to happen, but when that happens, I think it's going to be very hard to get any real gold
Hmm.
because right now people are just trading a lot of it. Of course, not you and I and a lot of our viewers.
Right.
So that's how
Right.
I see it. It's encouraging. I see that silver today is up, but not as much.
Hmm.
But silver is doing well as well. I do still expect silver to outperform eventually.
Yeah. And right now it's 25-ish, give or take, depending on whatever, metric you're looking at. And so one thing I noticed outside, because, I did a little rant on it and people were saying like, well, I'm not going to really get excited until, it breaks the previous high and then shoots past that. And I'm like, okay, that's a great perspective. But for the newbies to the community that don't know the real importance of gold as I call it, a monetary constant, the gold hasn't changed. It's just how we measure it. I'm like, what if we were to reverse the way we look at metal price wise and compare it to or measure it in fiat currencies? And so I was looking at the inverse chart of metals, of gold in particular. And let me just share this with you real quick here.
Yeah. So how many ounces of gold you can get with $1, which is 1/200,000th? Yeah.
Right. But and another thing, so what I did was I put USD as the, let me see, go back
Oh
this way.
yeah.
No.
because
So
usually it's XAU USD. You put it the other way around. Yeah.
correct. So typically, whenever we're talking about price action, we're looking at, okay, so right now, it goes at 2050, 50, whatever, and we look at the trajectory of gold in USD terms going up. But if we look at gold as the monetary constant, when I just reverse this and I make the measuring stick, the price of how many units in fiat, rather, or the value of the fiat over time, the fiat value goes down in reference to
Oh yeah.
the gold price. And I did all the Dixie country, all the Dixie currencies, because somebody brought up the idea that, what about the Dixie bags? The Dixie's at 103. I'm like, well, no, it doesn't really matter, because it's a measurement of all fiat currencies that are failing in real time if you use gold as a measuring stick. And so I just zoomed out 10 years, because that's all that's available here. And as of right now, if gold was the anchor and you use the USD to measure it in value terms, it's down. Fiat is down. Federal Reserve note is down 40% right
Yeah.
now over the last 10 years,
Yeah.
if gold was the standard that we were measuring in fiat by. So,
Oh yeah.
one goes up, other will go down. But ultimately, the point is fiat is the last place you want to be in the end, because there's no future in it in
It's going
reference to purchase power and
it's
everything.
going off the chart, down off the charts there. But yeah,
Correct.
fiat currency politicians and central bankers, they can print ad infinitum, and I don't
Mhm.
think they're going to stop. Gold
Right.
is more difficult to find, and it's rarer than paper or just funny currency. There's another website called FX Top, and
Mhm.
you can put the gold before and the
Yeah.
dollar first and gold after in terms of grams, and it goes back all the way to 1953. And
Mm.
yeah, the dollar's lost 98% since then. The pound has lost 99%. It's only 1%, but it makes a difference over 70 years. The best
Yeah.
performing fiat currency versus gold is the Swiss franc. So if you want to stay in fiat currency, which I wouldn't want, the Swiss franc is probably the best one.
Yeah, do it to your own demise. And so that's just something I thought was very encouraging. And so between now, so the next question would be, between now, with all this, price action around gold, internationally speaking, as well as in the USD, the fact that the USD is seeing some upward trajectory is promising, given that all the other currencies are already at all-time highs. And so between now and March 11th of 2024, when, the BTFP banking emergency fund is either prolonged, canceled, or whatever happens between now and then, I would imagine, barring some type of unforeseen event, the gold price should be a lot higher than what it is now. But then again, we never know if the controlling force
Yeah,
is still trying to keep things down. But
yeah.
I want to pivot a little bit into the banking contagion. You did a video earlier just highlighting the losses that are piling up, and they're happening everywhere. So it's not like, we can just, focus on one particular sector, because it's happening with the Federal Reserve balance sheet. We got, the banks here, then we got the programs they set up. And so I was also thinking about, like, okay, right now 600 and some 85 or whatever, what happens if we get to that trillion? Are we heading towards that trillion mark? And then what? Like, those are, that's major losses there, and we're not getting the full story here. So could we see a trillion plus heading into the new year, and the decision being needed to be made for that BTFP, which is still, it's only $100 or so billion. So there's a big gap there. There's a big gap there of possible funds needed. But what are you feeling? What are you thinking?
The key, I think, as to whether we'll get to a trillion in losses is the bond market, because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these institutions, they carry, investment securities, as it says. It's mortgage bonds, treasury bonds,
Mm-hmm.
and treasury bonds or treasury securities. They've rallied in the last month, so their prices have gone up. And I'm not sure. Mortgage securities probably have rallied a little bit. So I actually think maybe, because this is for the third quarter,
Mm-hmm.
this bar here, the last one. So in the fourth quarter, which we should get, when should we get it? In the beginning of February, I think. No, beginning of March.
Mm-hmm.
We should get the numbers. I
Mm-hmm.
expect maybe the losses to shrink,
Hmm.
but only because the bond market has rallied. And I think the Fed and the Treasury in the last month, they've done everything possible to manipulate Treasuries higher. And
Hmm.
why do I say that? Well, because Yellen announced in the 1st of November that she was going to issue less long term Treasuries and more short term Treasuries. That helped the market rally.
Hmm.
Uh, and I don't know if you remember Bill Ackman, a hedge fund guy, back in the
Hmm.
23rd or 21st of October. He said, "Oh, I've closed all my shorts for treasuries. You know, the yield is at over 5%." And he publicized that. I think he got a nudge. You know,
Hmm.
they called him and said, "Look, we're going to lower the amount we're going to issue. The market's going to rally. You know, help us out. Close your position. You've made money, and you know, go the other way." And I think that's what's happened. But um, I don't think things are getting better in terms of the bond market, and I do see yields going back up. Whether they do it from now to the end of the year or in the beginning of next year is a different story. But it could definitely get to $1 trillion, and a lot of people are going to say, well, a lot of it, these losses are held to maturity, so it doesn't matter. But the same thing happened in March. You know, a lot of depositors in SFB saw those big losses, even though they're held to maturity, and said, well, I don't want to stay with this bank, I'm going to take my money out. You
Yeah.
know, and if it starts getting to $1 trillion, you know, yeah, people are going to be concerned, and especially if they don't renew the BTFP.
Hmm. 100%. And so, speaking of that, let me get to this next little article here. Just because I think a lot of attention should be on the banks because of what happened last March was more so like a warm up. So this is just a little subreddit from Powell says the quiet part out loud, and he's talking about just all the losses incurred, and of course the Fed as of right now
Hmm.
underwater by one was it one? Let me see what's the figure here. 1.2 billion trillion. I'm sorry. No, over 120 billion. I'm sorry, my bad. Of current losses that they have, and then we have the response to the banking issue back in March, where primary credit kicked in the moment that SVB and all those banks started going under. Then FDIC kicked in with their emergency funding, and then they created the BTFP, which was designed to instill confidence so people wouldn't run into the bank. So things have quieted down in the mainstream media, but the issue is still at hand because the BTFP, which is still, trending sideways and up a little bit. And so as of now, I was listening to some commentary, and they were saying that as of today, let me get my articles here. As of today, there is no official exit plan or resolution for this emergency measure that was put out there. And so as of March 11, between now and then, something has to be made. Some decisions have to be made. And so my question I put out there was, is March 11th or before then going to be a day of reckoning to where some tough decisions will need to be made on top of all the losses and things like that you touched on? And so can 2024 be another banking catastrophe of some kind if this right here is not utilized even more?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a catch. I mean, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know, for Powell, because if he says right now, "Oh yeah, we're going to renew it," it shows that he's worried about the banking sector. And
Mm-hmm,
then
mm-hmm.
if he come March 11th or whenever this comes due, he hasn't done anything. It might be also, problematic. Considering depending where treasuries are, if yields are back up above 5%. So yeah, it will be an interesting first few months of the year. January, February can be quite interesting, I would say.
Yeah. Now, on another note, as far as like a what you call it, like a backstop with the reverse repo action. And so I've noticed a lot of people talking about how come February, and if you mentioned even February, March, let me grab that if I can. That's the wrong one. Where'd it go? Nope. Gotta get my windows together. But anyway, you mentioned that by between now and February-ish, March-ish, the reverse repo could be down to zero or drained. And at that moment, the currency that's being used there or being removed is that somehow, some way helping the banks in reference to the complete losses of 685 from Q3 to the 100 that's being borrowed as of now from whatever banks in between? That large gap there, could the reverse repo funds that's being removed be something to help prop up, sustain, help make banks operations run semi smooth now, type of thing, or what?
Well, I think the reverse repo helps keep demand for U.S. Treasuries. So what that
Mm-hmm.
means is that with all the issuance that we're going to see in the next few months or year,
Mm-hmm.
um, if there isn't that much demand for treasuries, and I think it's down to 887 billion, who's going to be buying those treasuries? And that could lead to higher treasury yields, and higher treasury yields will hurt the balance sheets of the banks, right? Indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the problem with the and everyone's talking a lot about the reverse repo, and I have spoken about it as well. And it's it's kind of complicated even for people who work in the markets. I remember when I worked in the markets, the repo market was a bit like something unusual. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll have to wait and see, but it's not a good thing. It's another negative along with the BTFP, I would say.
Yeah. So in the crosshairs of all this confusion are the depositors,
Yeah.
and confidence remaining in the systems that have been set in place. Even though clearly on the banking side they're trying to prop things up with these emergency windows and all these funds that
Mm.
are there. And so as of now, it all boils down to whether the Fed pivots or not, whether there's a pivot baked into the cake in the beginning of March or not, because something gonna be exposed, and it won't be favorable for those who think that what's in the hands of the bankers is actually there. So I can imagine, as a result of all this, there'll be more confidence in people wanting to get out of this system, and that right there puts more of an upward trajectory on gold and silver,
Mm.
which makes it very hard to keep those under control as well, price wise. So we're going to be off to a hell of a 2024, based upon
Yeah.
just the things we talked about here.
Yeah, I think it's if you have over $250,000 in your bank, I think you're playing with fire. And
Mm-hmm.
we're hearing a lot of anecdotal stories, evidence about people being asked loads of questions if they move money out. They're making it
Mm-hmm.
more and more difficult, and I think that's one of the reasons they want to move to digital, because with I don't even call it cash. It's like with the promissory notes and coins,
Mm-hmm.
you at least can get out of the system. And the reason I don't call it cash, because originally cash was like specie or gold and silver coins. So I still think the best way to be outside the banking system is through gold and silver, physical. But as I said, most people see gold and silver as a speculative trading commodity, and they want to make more and more fiat dollars. But it's almost like if you go back to like 2017 or 18 in Venezuela,
Mm-hmm.
before everything kicked off, the hyperinflation. If you're trading gold, you could have done well. And then I think gold went down quite a bit for a year or so. And if you got out because you said, oh, gold has come down, a year and a half later, you would have lost everything in terms of purchasing power. So what I'm trying to say here, look at gold as an insurance, because I think we're near a point where the fiat dollar is going to purchase a lot less.
Yes.
Plus, the safety of having it in the bank as well is the other reason.
Right. More counterparty risk in the days ahead for sure. All right, so let's keep it moving to some more subjects. As always, for those who are plugged in, I'm sure you got thoughts and opinions on that. So feel free to throw them out in the chat. We'll get to them as we move forward. The empire of debt. Let's get to this little graphic here. I didn't have a chance to thumb through it, but I did see it. I noticed everything is trending upwards. But give us some more insight into what we're looking at with this graph here. Because I see GDP,
Oh yeah,
nominal public debt.
yeah. Maybe if you can move yourself
Okay,
above
let me get
my
it. All
my
right,
circle.
go ahead.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show how a lot of the growth that we're told that the economies have is all because of all the debt. And
Hmm.
there's one country, Germany, prior to 2020, they were running budget surpluses, the Germans, and their
Hmm.
debt to GDP was below 60%. And their GDP was not very high, it was 1 or 2%.
Hmm.
But I said at the time, Germany, the German economy is doing better because at the time, let's say 2019, under the Trump administration, we had a 5% budget deficit and the economy was growing at 3 or 4. And people say, oh, look, our economy grows a lot more than the German economy. Well, that's because of all the debt. The Germans, they're quite frugal and they have laws to limit the amount of debt that the government can borrow. And
Hmm.
and you can see that by the the blue line is the nominal public debt. Theirs is like half the French, like way below all the other ones. And actually, their economy uh, is done a lot better than the French economy because the French economy has taken on a lot more debt and it hasn't grown as much. Yes, the UK and the US are growing more than Germany, but look at all the debt that we've taken on since 2007.
Hmm.
So yeah, that I mean, look at Italy. They've taken on maybe just a little more than Germany, but their economy is really hasn't done much, and that's a different story. There's a lot of regulatory red tape that stops, I think, the Italian economy from doing well. So yeah, it just goes to show that a lot of the growth we see, Mike, is just like pretend. It's all on borrowed, funny money.
Right. And I remember, I'm not sure exactly how it goes, but I remember hearing something about for every dollar of debt, there used to be the return on that debt, years and years ago was, $3 or something like that return based upon productivity. And now due to a lack of productivity, it takes, maybe 8, 9, 10, 12, dollars, and you don't get nowhere near the return based upon all the debt that's in issue. So that line of debt is just going to go even higher, and they're going to be
Yeah,
squeaking out very minimum of anything
yeah,
because it's all government growth right now. Government expenditures is
yeah.
what is considered productivity now.
The other thing that's going to make it worse for the private sector, and it's the private sector that drives growth ultimately, is rising bond yields because governments are going to have to service. The only way they service their debt and higher debt costs is through issuing more debt. So
Hmm.
it's a it's a vicious circle.
Yeah. Let's get to the super chat here. Appreciate you, Chris. It says, how soon after the Fed cuts rates will precious metals jet higher? Will base metals also follow suit? Thanks. So the time frame of after the
Well,
Fed cuts, will
I
the rates, will precious metals fly? What do
I
you think?
think they're already kind of forecasting it right now. Right now, gold, as we speak, is almost only $9 from the all-time high.
Hmm.
So usually, markets they forecast things in advance. They're telling us the Fed's going to have to do this. And if you look at Treasury yields today as well, they've dropped a lot. Like the 2-year yield is down 12 basis points, which is saying that yeah, the Fed's going to start probably cutting rates soon, even though
Hmm.
Powell is like saying one thing and another. So base metals, they haven't really had a very good year, base metals, but yeah, they could pick up. I think gold and silver, if you look at 2020, I think they picked up earlier than base metals, and then base metals picked up afterwards. So yeah, that's the way I see it.
So the idea of jetting higher, like could so basically you're saying that everything is already trending as if like metals is performing in an environment where it's reflecting the interest rates should be cut any minute now. But if they do, will there be that exponential like shoot up as far as it jet higher? That's to be determined. But anyway, we're
Yeah,
going on a good trajectory.
I think whenever the Fed gives any hint that they'll think about cutting, that will happen even before they do it.
So Rod B says 2081.70 right now, Mario. So I'm not sure.
No, that's
What
the I'm looking at the spot price. He's looking at the December or the February futures.
futures? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't look at futures. The spot price is 2061. The spot all-time high is 2070.
Mhm.
So the February futures might be at 81, but I don't look at that.
Interesting. Okay, let's keep it moving. Let's get into we got a couple other topics here. The geopolitical situation. So let's talk a little bit about. Oh, I'm curious to get your thoughts on. Let me grab this here. Let me grab this. Find if I can find it real quick. Milei. So he came to visit here in the States earlier this week. Met with
Mm,
all the U.S. officials, the Clintons, and everybody
yeah.
else. And yesterday surfaced an article saying that as of now, Argentina will not be joining the BRICS. And so I'm thinking like, okay, is that like something that was already in the cards, or it was like, Milei got instructions that, hey, we want to start dialing back on this BRIC stuff. And so that means you can't participate if you want to if you want to try to renegotiate the IMF loans, or what are you thinking with the possibility of the BRICS not going through for Argentina?
Yeah, it's disappointing, Millet, that he met with Bill Clinton. I think
Mhm.
that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
Even though he talks a good libertarian, free market, sound money talk. So I don't know. Yeah, apparently one of his uh, off officials that is
Yeah.
working on the transition said they're not planning to join the BRICS at this time. He didn't say
Yeah.
they don't want to join it, but yeah, he might have. The Americans might have said, don't join the BRICS, and we'll make it easier for you at the IMF.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately he does want, I think, to improve things at home in
Mhm.
Argentina, because it's a basket case, Argentina, and so maybe he thought it would be better to do that than to join the BRICS. Yeah,
Yeah.
and apparently he said that he still wants to abolish the central bank. I heard someone say, yeah, he'll close the central bank and then open another one. I hope not. you know, I hope he abolishes for good. He did say in an interview he gave after he won that
Mhm.
since the central bank was created in 1935, inflation has gone, crazy. And prior to the central bank being created, inflation was only 0.9% a year. So I'm not sure if he's going to close this one and then open another one. Hopefully, he won't. But there's a lot of speculation. People saying, "Well, he's works for the globalists, World Economic Forum, and
Mhm.
stuff." So yeah, I mean, as I always say, never trust politicians. Just look after yourself. Don't look for anyone to come on a white horse and save you. But uh, I think Argentina is in such bad shape that he can do something to help Argentina.
Mhm. Yeah.
But whether he is really for real in terms of being small government and libertarian has to still be seen. We need to give him some time.
Yeah, yeah. So I was very skeptical on all that talk, even though it sounds good. It was right.
Mm,
It was what the country wanted to hear to get him into office. And as always, now can you follow those plans? Because it takes more than one man. You got to have everybody around you, including parties, to help you push your agenda forward. And I'm
mm,
thinking, like this current moment, like even though central banks aren't necessary, they're basically privatized entities that have monopolized currencies on behalf of states and nations. But at this current moment, like, what's the alternative for those guys? Like to abolish the central bank and then put their own monetary policy in the hands of their own treasury, which is, I'm sure, how it started. Like they don't have the competence, I think, to get things on the right track because they're going to use it in a debt based manner rather than going back to something stable in the form of a precious metal or something of that nature. So I wouldn't have high hopes at all from that country.
mm.
Nevertheless, the fact that okay, he's gonna
Yeah,
get
I
rid of the
think
bank.
one of the things that looks interesting for Argentina is that he's looking to cut the public sector massively, and public sector works and privatize a lot of companies. He said, any business that can be done privately and better, we're
Mhm.
going to do that. So we'll see.
Yeah, time will tell. And as of course, as next year, I mean, once he gets in office, the real fight begins. So more power to him. Hope he lives up to some of that hype because I'm assuming a lot of people in Argentina are counting on him to do something. But in the meantime, the whole idea of dollarizing the economy, and so like using lessening the debt load and actually making the dollar part of their economy outside of what it already is for the average person.
Yeah,
Like I'm not quite sure that will be in his
yeah.
country's favor either
Apparently,
because
apparently Argentinians have like $260 billion, so
correct.
they already used the dollars. So it might not be that difficult. But
Yeah.
what if the dollar goes south as well?
Yeah, and so my thing is it'll be a lifeline extension for the role of the dollar because you have another country coming in to where they can, take out debt in dollar terms or whatever, prolonging the lifespan of the dollar more. And so that's
Mm.
just one of my things. It helps us who are users of the dollar more than it will help them in the end because it's another failing currency on their part. So anyway, all right, a couple more topics here. What else we got? So it looks like was it the COP 28? King Charles was speaking. He gave it. I listened to his speech. He gave 5 focal points that he wants to work on for this upcoming decade and going to zero carbon emission and everything in between. And the fact that everybody, all the state officials are sitting there listening to this guy read off a script, talk about how much right now is the time to bring about change. He mentioned about the need for 4 to 5 trillion annually to help them accomplish their goals, the need for private and public to work together. And I'm thinking like,
Yeah,
like it just sounds like nothing
I'm
good for
sure.
humanity is in that speech.
I'm
What'd
sure
you say?
he's not going to pitch in his own money. It's all going to be us taxpayers. It's just frustrating seeing these conferences and people buying into this climate scam. Really,
Mhm.
I don't buy it. It's a control mechanism. Unfortunately, there's so much power behind it. It's not just the West. You look at, I think, is it Dubai or Qatar? They just announced a huge fund for you know uh, climate change and
Mhm.
stuff. Everyone's moving into this electric re-electrification. EVs,
Yeah.
net zero. Even the Chinese, even though they're doing it slower. So yeah, unfortunately, I think it's a gravy train.
Mhm.
And yeah, and it's going to be tough to stop it.
Right.
Because
That's
and why do I say it's a scam? Well, because the climate, apparently, there was like a minimum that happened in 1850, like a mini ice age that ended then, and of course, from 1850 to now, it's going to be like warmer. But if you
yeah.
take the temperature further back, you can do whatever you want and to say scare people. And they've been scaring people for decades. Like in the 70s, they said acid rain. And then it's going to destroy the world and so and
Mhm.
so. And now it's a carbon. I
Right.
bet you in 10 years time or 20 years time, it's going to be you know something of the past, hopefully.
Right. So what I've gathered from this is they're literally financializing weather as a result of this scare that they've created. They've spun off products, carbon related products. You got carbon debt bonds. You can
Oh
buy
yeah,
carbon credit scores. You can buy, and it's
yeah,
even down to the personal level. And I was just talking about how they're talking about now having carbon. Let me put on the screen here. Carbon passports for travel. So every aspect of an individual
yeah.
who emits carbon, because we're carbon beings in general,
Mm,
and so it's going to be a way to tax as well as to make a profit off of every single entity of our lives that uses energy
mm.
down to the actual ability for you to travel. And so, like,
Yeah,
literally, it's just another product. It's another way to make money off of weather, man, to where it's
yeah,
ingenious from the evil standpoint, but it's like it's going to cause more of a burden on us because it's going to be more expensive to do everything, especially if we use our carbon limits up according to where they're trying to do stuff. But anyway,
yeah.
I'm
When
sorry.
when I was driving today to play a bit of golf, I was listening to the radio, and they're in. There's an advert for an energy company provider in the UK, and this woman said, "Oh, I'm a climate scientist." They're creating even new sciences. But
Professions.
let me just send you a link here because you'll
Uh-huh.
find it really interesting. You've heard of the Weather Channel, of course, right?
Yes.
Let me send you a private chat link, and then you can pick it up. Uh, there you go. Guess who bought the Weather Channel back in 2011?
What I would look at, I would say probably the Rothschilds. Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
no, you're right.
That was a complete guess, but I'm thinking like, why not? Just
Can
throw
you
it out
bring
there.
it up? Can you
Yeah,
open
give me
it?
1 second. Let me go ahead and grab it. I have to, it doesn't show, so I gotta archive it 1 second. Give me 1 second here. It doesn't show. Oh, and all of a sudden I can't
So
archive it.
back in the 19th century, Amschel Meyer Rothschild said, "Give me control of the currency." Oh, Mike is gone, and I care not who makes the rules. Now it's give me control of the weather. So that's why they had to buy the Weather Channel. Mike is gone. Um, yeah, we're gonna wait for Mike. Where are you, Mike? Any questions, guys? Oh, there you're back.
Yeah, forgive me. Ah, man, I messed up.
I
Sorry.
thought we thought we lost you.
I had a what you call it, had a VPN on and I cut the VPN off.
All right.
All
Oh,
right, so
there
let
you
me
go.
uh, there we go. Oops. So yeah, so I couldn't archive it, but so yeah.
You can see it there. That's from it's from 2011.
Yeah.
So February 2011. So I was telling the viewers why you were off that
Mhm.
in the 19th century, one of the Rothschilds said, "Give me control of the money, country's money, and I care who makes the law. I care not who
Mhm.
makes the laws." Now it's give me control of the
The
climate,
media, the
the
climate, the
climate,
media,
the
the
media.
music,
Yeah,
entertainment,
and I
food.
care not who makes the laws, right? And give me
Right, right, right. So just thinking about like, how the privatization and consolidation of all primary mediums of business and commerce has been brought into the hands of a small few to where they're the ones trying to steer this transition. And climate is just the most recent
mm,
narrative to pull off the heist, the last heist of humanity. Because after this, if this succeeds, you'll own nothing and be happy with it. And I can see how they make that statement with pure confidence. So
yeah,
the question is the resistance. Like, how do we resist
yeah.
collectively? So,
Well, keep talking about it, maybe, and hopefully they won't censor us. But the people who will own everything are people like the Rothschilds and the big funds, and they'll rent it to us.
yeah,
And yeah,
sick and twisted, man. Let's want to get into some Q&A. We about
yeah,
38 minutes or so. Let's get into some Q&A. So what I'll do for those who want to um, join us face to face to let your voice be heard, feel free. I'm putting the link in now, or put out questions, highlight at RTD or at Manico so it'll stand out and we can
get
answer
your
it.
weight up.
2023 edition,
Yeah,
Silver Eagles.
I got someone sent these to me, which was very nice. Uh,
Yeah,
20 of them.
yeah. You get a
I
get a.
love the sound of money, silver.
It makes you appreciate the soundness of it, the
Yeah,
elements of it, the purity of it, the fineness of it, all the characteristics of what money used to be. Okay, so throw out some questions, thoughts, ideas, suggestions. We'll try to answer it and share our 2 cents on it. Or if you want to join us face to face, you got the link out there in the description. Click it and join us. And so let's see what we got going on. Seb B says you guys are a great pair. Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
thank you.
What else we got? Will oil prices go up in a crash? Initially the price will come down, but the response I
Yeah,
think will probably be very like it'll
yeah.
take off like everything else probably.
Darren
So
Smith is asking a question here. So,
all right, one
oh,
second. Let me go down. Aaron's where we got
Mario,
the
have you read The Great Taking? Yeah, I've read it and I've made a few videos about it. I mean, Doug Casey was the guy who looked into it first, But I made a
Mhm.
video in September, I think, about it, and it's got almost 70,000 views. I've read the book as well. It's something that could happen, the great taking. It doesn't necessarily mean it will. It's another reason to have a foot outside the system.
Nate says, will they confiscate Roth hold gold? Roth hold who they? Who is they? Like
The government.
Roth? Yeah, like so. Man, I remember
You
I've read.
you explain that because I'm not.
So no, so will they confiscate Roth hold gold? So I'm assuming Rothschild gold. So my response would be no, because they are the ones
I
that.
think I think he means, isn't it Roth IRAs? Isn't it like a kind of
Oh,
pension
Roth
in the US?
IRA, Roth hold. I thought you meant Rothschild. It'll be easier to get to that because it's registered. It's a registered financial product that the system is that's in the system. So they'll be able to look in the database and find out who has what in their IRA. So that'll probably be the first line of attack because it's easy to get to, and then go from there. So anything is possible, not likely, but possible. Because to my
GL,
knowledge,
GLD as well. It's an ETF and it's registered. They could take the
yeah,
gold from GLD, even though it's the big banks that hold that gold. So I'm not sure they'll go after it.
right. And they somehow, some way, they may say that gold that is associated with any of these products that is not in the hands of the banks has to be brought back into the banks, and you'll have possession of it. You can check your account, but you won't be able to get access to it the way you used to have it. So they can spend another product off it. Nate says, where do the Rothschild store their gold? That's a great question,
Uh,
and I would imagine they have centuries
yeah,
holding.
I can
They got
talk a little bit about that. Not that I know, but they're NM Rothschild, which is the London bank. They're right near the Bank of England.
Mhm.
It's called in Saint Swithin's Lane, and they've got vaults underneath
Mhm.
the bank, and the vaults run into the Thames. It's quite near the
Mm.
Thames. And I knew a fund manager about 20 years ago. He was asked by one of his clients who held some gold with the
Mhm.
Rothschilds to go check the vaults, and there is gold there. And apparently, the vault goes into under the river, and if someone tries to go in there and steal the gold, they have they can open something, and the water just flows in, and the person
Mm.
dies. Is just you know. Drowns. So,
Yeah,
but I would say, the Rothschilds they're not just in London, they're in France, they're in Switzerland. They've got
everywhere.
they got their gold pretty much everywhere. I'd say probably a lot in Switzerland. A lot of them, the mountains in Switzerland, they have they have big vaults in the mountains. Switzerland is like a big vault itself. So
Yeah.
I would say they have a lot of their gold there.
And so another thing is, I remember, just for curiosity's sake, always trying to study up on and read. And I actually came across a publication on googlebooks.com 7, 8 years ago. And it was a book written in 1897 where journalism was real and people were actually able to give honest, viewpoints on things. And they had a actual chart in that book listing that at that time it was a headline from like the New York somebody or another saying that the Rothschilds gold is the largest stash in the world or something like that. And I took a screenshot of it. And so one of my computers, I can't find it, but the book is gone. And so that was my only evidence as to how in 19 whatever that article was, the Rothschilds were the biggest gold holders then. And it was good to say that they've probably gotten a lot more. But I brought this up because they have properties, compounds all over the world.
Yeah.
And I saw photos of, like, they got palaces and castles in every country around the world. They own large masses of territory in every single country. That's how widespread they are.
Mm.
And they have influence in every single central bank. They're in my opinion, one of the primary shareholders of the big banks that then are the shareholders of the actual central bank. So their webs go very, very deep, to say the least. But anyway, that was a long rant. Yeah, throw out some more questions. Any bold and courageous individuals want to join us face to face? I'll put it out there for people to join us. I always love being able to connect with people. So if you're interested, I'll send it again. Um, says Manigo64. Are you aware that our legal name, birth certificate, is a
Yeah, yeah,
corporation?
yeah. I know. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I know about all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and if it's written in block capitals, it's it's not really you.
You.
Yeah, technically, I'm Mario of my family. They give you a surname. It's part of the whole legal system.
Mhm.
You look at at King Charles. They don't really use their surname, so they have that system for them. Common law
Mm.
that
Mhm.
they just call him Charles. They don't call him Charles. Whatever. So yeah, and I mean we are under maritime law or admiralty law. I know all about that.
Yeah.
and,
And that's the
and
thing. Like with that information, like how beneficial has it been? Like, because I know
yeah,
you talk like that around here, and most people I know who use that type of lingo, they're in trouble with the law already,
yeah,
and so they're trying to get out
yeah.
of trouble.
I mean, I looked into that. I listened to people years ago about that. The thing is, if you try to live like that,
Sovereign.
you're gonna be a hermit, and nothing wrong with being a hermit if you want to be a hermit. But unfortunately, I think again, the more people know about this, the better. But yeah, there's a lot of things. Technically, the only things that are illegal against the law is that if you hurt someone, you attack someone. If you steal from someone, or if you commit fraud, or
Mhm.
if you rape someone and you steal. Those are, there's not much else. Everything else is just these uh, admiralty, admiralty law is not really common law. But unfortunately, they've just changed things over the centuries. And, you tell that to some people, they have no clue what you're talking about. They think you're crazy.
Yeah, very much so. And not to change topics completely, but it looks like there's a few people like counting down as if like any minute now, we're going to hit that all time high. And so
Oh yeah,
people are,
it looks like it. Yeah, I was just looking at gold, 2066. We're only $4. I think we're gonna test it tonight before we close. Yeah,
yeah,
like it.
people are going to pop a bottle of champagne. Boop, let's
Yeah,
go. We got
actually, I have a couple. Actually, I might have
what?
to put it. I might have to put it in the. No, I mean, one thing I want to say, not because of gold, but one thing I want to say, don't get excited, nor over the years I've learned that you don't get dejected when gold goes down, and you don't get excited when it goes up. You try to
Mhm.
stay even keel, because we could be laughing here, it's at 2100 at the end of the day, and the next week they bash it, we're back below 2000. So you need to be really emotionless, I think.
Hannah says, "Pop the bubbly."
Yeah, why not? It's fun.
Let's get so real quick before we bring these to a end. I know you wanted to comment on. Let me grab that picture
Oh
of the
yeah,
dart gun. So I'm curious to hear what you talk about that one.
yeah.
So this is
Oh yeah.
the
Okay,
image. Go ahead.
I'll talk about that. Some of you might be familiar with the church committee from the 70s. It was a Senate committee that the official name was something else, but it's known as the church committee. They were investigating transgressions or illegal activities by the secret services like FBI, CIA, NSA, and the guy who chaired it was the guy with the dart gun that the CIA used to kill, assassinate foreign leaders.
Mhm.
It shot a little dart, and you couldn't feel it, and it just gave you a heart attack or something. And yeah, this guy was Senator Frank Church of Idaho, and it was the first time that the U.S. government investigated the intelligence agencies. because they were getting too powerful. And if it wasn't for this guy, they probably still they'd be even more powerful than they are today. So
Hmm.
he wanted to go back to like the Constitution. He was a Democrat, but he was very conservative, and he thought that the intelligence services could destroy the republic. And I think this is also when we learned that the CIA had an operation called Mockingbird, where they planted hundreds of assets in the mainstream media. So
Hmm.
it's because of Senator Church that we know all about this. And the other day, I went to Gold Investments to have a chat with Oliver, and someone had sent me this book. It's called The Last Honest Men by James Risen,
Hmm.
and it's about Senator Frank Church. And then it was someone that watches my videos sent it to me, and then I looked inside, and there's a small note, and I'll read it to you guys if you don't mind.
Hmm.
It says, "Dear Mario, I wanted to send this new book about my father, Frank Church, since you talk sometimes about the CIA and Kennedy. Frank was only one of 9 U.S. senators that voted to keep silver coinage. Keep up the good work of informing the public about sound money. Sincerely, Chase Church." So it's the guy's son. So I thought
Yeah.
that was really interesting. And
Yeah.
I checked, the Coinage Act of 1965, that was the one that took silver out of the coinage, and he
Hmm.
was one of the 9 senators that voted against it. It could be because Idaho is a big silver state, but I think his son is saying that he was a sound money guy.
Yeah. Well, that's a good history lesson there, man. No, thanks for sharing that. Well, we're about 50 minutes or so. Nobody joined us face to face. We have a lot of interaction and back and forth. And so it looks like there's a countdown to go's all time high.
Let's have a look here.
So,
We got up to 67.89. 26, we were at 2066. Silver is now catching a little bit of a bid for
ooh,
25.50 almost.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be time to pop some bubbly, people.
Where's Mr. Slammy? Is he falling asleep?
Oh yeah, or it's still early. It's only 1 o'clock my time, so it is still early. But as always, people, it was great to connect with you guys. Hope you guys had a great week, as well as have an even better, blessed weekend. And of course, we're back into December, so we got a couple more live streams before the Christmas time frame. So we'll definitely try to keep you plugged in on things. And other than that, enjoy life, love, live, and laugh. That's the 3 L's for the weekend. So
That's
appreciate you for joining us. Anything, Mario?
No, that sounds good. The triple L.
Triple L's. All right, good people. Be blessed. See you guys later. Peace.
Peace.